This is the weekly Grifball Hubcast, only on GrifballHub.com.
So we've actually had some stuff happen over the last week. I know AGLA was kind of on hiatus there for a second because the championship had to be moved back for Impulse to make it, but that finally got played just this past week.
Yep.
That was on Thursday Night Grifball, and that was a amazing championship series actually. And all three games are all three games are highlighted on our Twitch channel. If you are watching this live on Twitch, you can head to our profile and highlights, and you'll be able to see it from there. If you are watching this, after the fact, it's over at twitch.tv/GrifballHub. But all three games are highlighted on there. We hope to have those uploaded to the YouTube channel as well once those get properly linked. And it was a great series, definitely a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to. I think it's just a very competitive series. I mean, Impulse ended up taking that in 3 games, but very back and forth throughout, even though the scores didn't always reflect it. That third game was absolutely bonkers towards the end. So that was a great series by both of them. A huge congratulations to Impulse, who is the first Halo 5 AGLA champions. Definitely well fought and definitely well deserved. So again, a huge congratulations to them. But yeah, I think that probably took what, like almost exactly 2 hours, if I remember right.
Just about. It filled up the whole time slot.
Yeah,
except
I
for
think we ended
about 15 minutes.
Yeah, we ended like maybe 5 minutes before, if you count the stat recaps at the end. So it was pretty much perfectly timed. But no, a great series, a lot of fun to watch. I would definitely recommend checking that out. Over on the AMI side of things, the AMI playoffs, finally the first game got played just this past Monday. That was my team Oblivion playing against Poison Pop-Tart's team, Underrated. That was in 2 games, but it was a very close 2 games. First game was 5-3, second game was 5-4. And honestly, we choked a 4-1 lead in that second game, so rip. But that was hugely fun to play. We played Underrated, obviously, quite a bit in the regular season, and they are a hugely competitive team. They are very good chemistry and just a very solid team throughout. So we weren't surprised to lose to them. We were hoping that we could at least sneak a game away from them, but unfortunately that didn't end up happening. But they're going to move on to the championship. The AMI Championship is going to be held on Thursday Night Grifball this upcoming week, so that will be at 9 p.m. Eastern. I would like to say a date, but I am very bad with calendars. Let me pull one up real quick. That is going to be the 15th. It'll be the 15th. That is currently the plan for our AGLA. The AGLA Championship, if that changes, it will be talked about on Twitter and on the Hub, but we have no reason to expect that to be different. The other semifinal game for AMI, which is Legendary versus Aftershock, will be played on Wednesday Night Grifball the day before on the 14th. And those are, I believe Aftershock was the number 1 seed and Legendary was the number 4 seed. So Aftershock, I mean, they just came together in a huge way over the this regular season. They have very good chemistry. A lot of these players know each other very well. A very good solid tanking line. Legendary, on the other hand, they have a lot of experience, whilst Aftershock is quite a bit newer. When you look at Legendary, it's captained by Ava, who's led some very great teams in the past. Obviously, he's one of the longest-running veterans in the league at this point. He's been around longer than me, and that's saying something, because I've been around since like 3 days. But yeah, he's been around, obviously everybody would know him from Red Ray, which he's been playing on for pretty much the entirety of his GGL career, if I remember correctly. So he's led quite a few good teams. He has built quite a few solid teams in this bid league in AMI. He has been the captain of Legendary for the majority of its time in the AMI League. So that is probably going to be a very good game. It depends on what Legendary team shows up. I think that's the way Crowbar put it, was that it's an emotional team. And I don't know if emotional is the right word, but I get the point of what he's saying. It's the sort of team where if they're doing bad, it sort of just kind of weighs down. Yeah, it's sort of morale-based. That's a good way to put it. When they're playing well, they can definitely run with anybody in the league, but when they're doing well, I think it kind of feeds back, and sometimes more mistakes start to happen. So I think a huge part of that is going to be seeing if they get in. I think a huge part of that comes into play. I think in a best of 3 in a single game, you don't really see that happen. Like you might have one bad game, but then that's it. You're done. When in a best of 3 series, though, you have 3 games in fast succession. So if you kind of lose morale on one of them, you have to earn that back and to kind of come back in the series. So I think we have DJ, I think, who is currently calling me on Skype. So let me quickly one second here. Him here. He's going to ruin the cameras here, so I apologize.
All right.
DJ, you ruined it.
It's my job. I'm really good at it.
So those the people who are watching this after the fact and not live on Twitch, I am currently having to reposition all of our webcams because DJ just joined the Skype call and it repositioned everything.
Hey, listen, it is 11 a.m. over here.
It is. Oh, we started early, didn't we? Oh. No, we didn't. We said 2 Eastern.
No.
We're fine.
It's 2 Eastern, yeah.
I'm not dumb.
There we go. Hi.
Hi, DJ.
All right, I'm gonna need just a second here to arrange this stuff.
You look great. Been working out? People keep you busy running from place to place?
Okay. What are we doing?
We were doing the Hubcast.
Who are we talking about?
We talked about the championship, the Pro Championship, which Impulse won. We are now talking about AMI playoffs.
Dude, you only had 9 minutes. You can't even have... How could you have gotten to that point in the show already?
Because we actually started on time.
Oh, well, you know what? Listen, Mr. Responsibility. We're going to have a talk about this.
Listen, Mr. Professional.
Hey.
All right.
Hey. Once I get to here, then a professional is... and I'm pointing at the bottom of my coffee cup for people listening to this. Once I get to the bottom of the coffee cup, then I get professional. Right now, I'm coughing up phlegm, waking up, and...
Man.
Still sick from PAX West, whatever's.
PAX West.
So, I mean, obviously, DJ, you weren't on the Hubcast last week. don't believe I was there either. But, yeah, because you were at PAX.
Nope.
So how did that go for our viewers who have not heard about it yet?
PAX West was insane. And, like, the... Excuse me. PAX 2015 was huge, and it was my first time ever being at PAX. I was fortunate to have gone there with Goose and Cal, and they showed me my way around, and I had, we had Dr. Leo with us and Proy's Joker, and this year was a completely different ballgame. This year I was actually working PAX. I was there with Games, PGE, the people who make the Vanguards, and the monitors that we used up on the stage at RTX. So I was working there with them Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because Friday I ended up over at 343 all day long, which was awesome. But
Yay.
PAX this year was enormous. There was at least a third more people there this year. At least it felt that way. It was non-stop. But there were some premieres, but there was also a lot of DLC content, like new add-ons for games.
Yeah.
There was a lot
games, but
yeah, there was new add-ons for games. Like
yeah.
There was Destiny. You got to play the Rise of Iron, things like that. But there wasn't a whole lot of, oh my god, this brand new game is coming up. It was focused. It seemed a little more on esports, with the exception of the indie divisions. The indie divisions, there was a ton of games, but I was only able to get over there to see 2 of them. One of which was Necropolis, that I actually helped with the premiere of back in July, right after RTX, up in Seattle with Bandai Namco and Harebrained Schemes. And that was cool because they have the new Brutal Edition, which was great. They changed the game a lot, but once again, it is a game that's already been out. The premiere, the focus was
released.
The new content.
It was add-ons.
Focus was all the new content. So it was a different feel this year, but it seemed to also be a lot more focused on the social aspect, because, at least for me, there was a lot more of the social aspect. It was much more about seeing and meeting up with people that were either old friends or new friends that you met just a year ago, like everyone from Ready Up Live, and over at Hyper RPG, I did 2 panels with Hyper RPG. That was fun. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. As always, I recommend people go to it. Rage was there with me. Shanzi was there. Dr. Leo was there. Sam was finally there because Sam is back in the country. Yay!
Yep.
So happy that
she's right
back.
over there. She's over there on West Coast now too with you all.
Yep. So happy about that one.
But no,
Pro's Joker was there, and yeah, there was a lot of people and a lot of friends. It was a very nice, bonding experience.
Real quick, Governor asked in chat if there was a prize for the AGLA finals. I do not
He
believe
wants
there
a
was.
prize.
Yeah, it was. No, there was not. At the beginning of the season, we didn't announce one, and honestly, it's easier if we don't announce one at the beginning of the season to not add one and just have any prize funds that we have available go into future seasons. Because some players, if they know that there's a prize at the beginning of the season, they're going to try harder or whatnot. It's a little bit easier to just kind of do it to have it all known up front rather than just saying like the week after a championship, oh, there was a prize this season.
Oh yeah,
But yeah.
sure. We'll give you something. Yeah.
But yeah, there was no plan for a prize pool. That is a question for the admins because I do not know if that was something that they planned. But as far as I'm aware, there was not. But to kind of go back onto PAX there, you were talking about how everything there was kind of add-on content, and that's all kind of. I look at the game industry now, and because that was something that I was originally planning to do a career in, and I've done a lot of indie development actually for a couple of years back when I was still in school. But okay, I don't care. He just wanted to make sure if his captain was ripping us off or lying. No, there was no prize this season. It was all any prizes for any GrifballHub event will be very prominently announced at the start of a season, and so we try to make that very visible, just to prevent even situations like
Shows
that.
what kind of Captain Tonga is, right?
Yeah. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a
there,
jerk.
There was no
Loved us
prize,
already.
so if Tonga would not be lying about any of that. But yeah, to
Depends
go
what
back to what I was
said.
saying there with you look at the industry now, it has gone to a very sort of active life cycle of development. It used to be you would see games released in their final form, and you would have almost nothing to update with them. And a huge part of that, I think, is you look at the medium back in the day. Like you look at like old consoles, like GameCube, PS2, which technically had online capabilities, but not really. You have no way to patch that or update and add new content to that after the fact without adding like a second physical disc or something.
Right, yeah. Well, the
There's-
memory wasn't there. In those older
Right.
units, you just didn't have the memory space. I mean, we remember the original PlayStation.
8 megabytes. Hold on,
Yeah.
I have it. I have one.
Those big ass cards that were, it was enough. It was memory that by comparison today is completely obsolete. You
8
can't save
megabytes.
anything with 8 megabytes.
You can't. You guys can't see my camera in Skype, but I'm holding it up for the stream. 8 megabytes.
Yeah.
That is not not gigabytes.
Yep.
That is megabytes.
I still have those.
Something you
from
can
my-
download in 2 seconds nowadays.
Oh yeah.
I don't have one of these USB sticks here, but I have a little SIM card adapter. It's like the exact same size. Like this. I have had 4 gigabyte USB sticks this big.
Yeah.
Comparatively to that, it's,
compact
I mean,
Flash is
yeah.
the same size now, and that's haven't been used in ages.
Yeah, but no, that's a huge part of it, I think, is just the medium is now in a place where that can happen, but whether or not it's a good thing is subject to debate. I always believe from the consumer aspect, it's good to know what you're getting beforehand. If you buy a game, like for example Halo 5, all this content like Grifball and everything else was added on after the fact with monthly updates, and looking at it from a developer side of things, it makes sense because one, your deadline isn't as stringent. Nowadays, your AAA deadlines are near impossible for for the scale that these projects are and how much work and testing has to go into them. Like, even with the iterative content like that, we've had such huge bugs, like the custom game bug and whatnot. And I mean, the game when it relaunched was in very good form. It was the add-on content that kind of had that problem, but all that extra time that they got to develop and test all this extra content just either it was done in a void without fully testing it with everything else that already existed, or there just wasn't enough time to test it even with that extra timeline. So, I mean, if you imagine all this content being in the game at launch with the bugs we've had even in this current state, it might have been so much worse. So, from that sort of aspect, it makes a lot of sense to do it iteratively. And then you also
Honestly,
have
it's changed.
Yep,
The
when you
market
release stuff
for
monthly
release
too.
has changed.
Yeah, when you release stuff monthly too, it also is bringing players back, because that's a huge thing now. The games are so competitive. You see a lot of people who might play a game nonstop for like a month or two and then just kind of sit it down. With Halo, you play it for a month, you start to get bored, and then suddenly there is this huge new content update. It keeps people pretty much constantly playing for the first 6 months. And if you look at the
sucked in.
yeah, if you look at the player numbers for Halo 5, people have actually researched this, but it's like the actual retention of it has been higher of like any game since 3, I believe.
Well, and if you look at the actual
The
And
interest
look
has
at the
actually increased since it
And look
launched.
at the size of the game. The amount of DLC they've released is equal to the size of the game in its original form.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, but I like all this. The thing is, like, I think all this with all the add-on content that were free updates, that was all intended to be part of the original game. That's how I look at it. Everything
Yeah.
from that first 6 content updates, like this is the final one, if I
I
remember
think it's
correctly.
because we're just old school fuddy-duddy gamers.
Yeah, this was all. I'd say this would
We
this one.
expect a whole package. That's how it be.
Yeah.
Well, here's the
and-
thing: from a consumer aspect, you don't like this iterative style of development because if you pre-order a game, which honestly you shouldn't because that's dumb, unless
Yeah.
there's significant pre-order bonuses. Like, see how it works now. In the back in the day
Unless
when
it's
there
a
was
DLC.
actually limited stock, it made sense. Nowadays, there is an unlimited number of online copies. There's no point. But if you pre-order a game or if you buy it on launch game and you haven't had the chance to see how it is, it's like some people
Okay.
like to know what they're getting into. With
Right,
some
and-
franchises, there are people who will always buy the game no matter how good or bad it is, just because they love the franchise so much and want to play it, and that's fair. But for a lot of let me finish real quick.
Okay.
But for a lot of consumers, and I'm kind of one of these people, I like to know what I'm getting. I want to know that what I'm buying is not an utter pile of crap. And when you have stuff that is launching over the course of 5 or 6 months for the entire like content of the base game, so to speak, to launch, you don't know what you're getting unless you wait 6 months in to buy the game. And by that point, you don't know what the interest in the game is going to be like. People might have abandoned it or whatnot. It's a weird sort of thing. Like, for consumers, it's much easier to make informed decisions when it's all out at once. And I think a big example that I've mentioned in the past is the new Hitman game, where it's actual, like, each level of the story is being done as episodic content.
Which is a
Right.
genius layout.
It's... Right, it makes
From
sense
a
for keeping
developer
player to
side,
come
yeah.
back, but if I want to buy the Hitman game, I don't know how long the campaign is. I don't know how good it's going to be. I just have that one level on the initial lease to base it off of. And you can't tell how any game is from one level, because especially that first level, that's where they try to hook you in. That's where they're going to be putting in a lot of budget, and to really kind of draw you into the world and keep you playing.
And that's why streaming has become such a big market, I guess, a big thing, because you don't know what it is, so you watch somebody else playing it and go, yeah, I want to buy that now.
Yeah. I mean, that's what basically YouTube gaming, the actual gaming side of YouTube, not YouTube gaming, the service, is built off of people doing reviews and whatnot. I mean, you look at people like Total Biscuit, who has done stuff, who just critiques games for a living. It's this huge thing, but stuff like this episodic content, I think it makes sense for developers like Telltale, where they don't have the size or the budget to consistently release these big, huge productions. But for a huge AAA studio that has the budget to handle this, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I see why they would want to do it, but from a consumer standpoint, there's no reason for it.
So, just to go back on something you said about the only having, but the digital copies, sometimes it doesn't pay to pre-order on major titles. The flip side of that, this is one example of a major studio that did something that I did pre-order because of the fact that I love the series so much, was Mass Effect 3.
Yep. Oh yeah.
This series, I pre-ordered. This series is the Super Box Box edition. It's the full 2-disc. It's the full 2-disc series, but it also came with, over a period of a year, or maybe it was a little bit more than a year, there was 20 gigs. No, 16. There was 20. A total of 20 gigs of content. And for an Xbox 360 game, that's insane.
Yeah. Well, what I mentioned with the pre-orders too is that's the only reason that I would see pre-orders making sense, is if there are significant bonuses to doing so.
Right, like you get
and
books.
you would still want to do your research on it beforehand. But
Or in the instance of DLC, if you already like the game that you have, you can pre-order their DLC and already have access to it day one.
Yes.
That's another thing about pre-ordering that I like.
Mass Effect is one of those games also that I would probably pre-order. I mean, I don't usually pre-order games, but it's one of those games that I would consider pre-ordering just because there really hasn't been a bad entry in the series. Like people like to talk trash on 3, but it was honestly my favorite in the series.
It was beautiful.
They actually went in and fixed the ending because of the complaints on it. Most developers won't go in and do that. And I actually like the multiplayer. I played a ton of the co-op multiplayer for that.
Yeah, that's what ditto. And I still go back and play that sometimes, even though the 3 it's in my opinion, it's one of the most resource-heavy games that ever came out on the 360.
Yeah, I mean, it's in terms of content, by far, it's one of the biggest ones out there. And that's BioWare is very good at that sort of thing, because the Dragon Age series, which I never got quite as into, it's kind of the same thing. The only other game I can think of that at least has made it to console with more content than that in a sort of RPG setting is the Witcher series, which is an absolute labor of love. It is incredible what they've done with that. The Witcher 3 I put 120 hours into on my first playthrough.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed 2 was another one that had a just absolutely ungodly amount of content to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know,
also
those are...
Italy.
Yeah, also Italy. All of Italy. The Spartacat is here.
Nice.
Welcome to the show. And But yeah, so just to fall back on what we were originally talking about, we were talking about PAX and the difference this year between a lot of the exhibits and a lot of the developers that were there, and the fact that there was a lot of things that were being released that weren't debuting. There weren't a lot of debuts this year. So, but which isn't disappointing. There was a lot to see. I didn't get to see much because I was working the entire time.
Yeah, that's the downside of being an exhibitor.
So next year, I don't think I will be working the entire time. I'm going to take one day just to do the show floor. But the 343 VIP thing was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
Jealous.
So, Andy and I got to play foosball. I did not realize how much of an insanely precise person he is when it comes to playing foosball. And this kid can juggle the ball like a professional soccer player with a foosball table. It's ridiculous. And then Unishek and Grim and I were playing a lot of ping pong. Extreme ping pong, where like you as long as the ball stays in play, it's in play.
Yep, that's what I did when I went to school down at U of I. We actually had a ping pong table down in the basement of our dorm, and my roommate and I, who I had known for like 16 years, going into there, we both love ping pong. So we were down there like at least 2-3 times a week, and it was in this like really enclosed room. Like it was just a separate room just for this one ping pong table. So there was walls kind of on all sides of it, and the ceiling wasn't all that high for it. So our rules is basically it could bank off of any wall as long as it hit the table, you were fine. It was incredible.
My God.
So it was just like bank shots off the walls and whatnot.
Yeah, it was cool. We ended up getting a lot of balls stuck in the lights, which was hilarious. Like 15 of them. So.
But yeah. To go back on to Grifball stuff, because this is the Grifball Hubcast.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Surprisingly,
we pulled a.
I know it's hard to tell.
Pulled a goose or cow. But GGL's the next team you got to talk about, right?
Yep.
Yeah. When is that starting?
So I know DJ, you were at Rose City Comic Con, so you weren't there for the entire meeting. But we had a meeting amongst leadership on Saturday to discuss a whole bunch of topics, and GGL was kind of on the foremost of the list to look at that. So we are currently very heavily ramping into that. Alley Cat, Rage, and myself are going to be adminning the GGL this season, so we're going to be the ones looking over that. So if you have complaints, forward them to us. Don't actually do that because I will hate you. But so that is, I would expect to see that ramping up once AGLA playoffs end the next week. We're going to start ramping up into that seriously. We are currently drafting the schedule for the entirety of the GGL. So right now, I imagine you would see early October as the most likely start date, and I think you'll see stuff start to really ramp into GGL signups as we approach the end of the year in September.
Cool.
So that's most likely what we're going to be looking at for that. And also on the topic of GGL, this is not run by us, but community member Skittles is running a training camp for new teams. He's looking for veteran captains to help kind of coach these players and train them. So if you are interested in doing that, reach out to him. If you are a new player and want to learn more about playing the game, I would also reach out to him and see if you can get in on that. So that Yep.
Yeah. And just to clarify for people who are wondering, like why you would want captains. So something that we came across earlier this year when we were getting to know some of our new players, getting to know, again, some of our older players that have come back, is that there is a tremendous skill gap between the people who've been playing for a while and the people who are brand new. And in some cases, the older players do not necessarily some of them have not translated into Halo 5 well, while others have picked up a lot of crazy skill shots. And in order for us to increase and bring up the level of competitive play, it's great that we have a lot of our talented players who are willing to share that information with players who maybe don't necessarily get some of those moves. And it's a wonderful opportunity to get to know some of the other players in... I'm not talking to you, Siri. It's a wonderful opportunity to get to know some of the other players who've been around for a while and who will be able to answer the questions that you might want to be asking. And it's another way to also learn how to do some of those trick moves that you have consistently been getting killed by. And how to get out of those moves.
The bigger thing is, usually I look at stuff like that and training players, and I see it less as teaching moves like that. Because especially in 5, most of these moves are kind of universal. They're intuitive. Like, you know how, like, sliding and then... like, slide tanking is maybe one that most people don't know, but that's not that difficult to pick up on. There really isn't a whole ton of flashy moves, more or less, that require a ton of skill to pull off. It's more so the actual...
It's all about timing.
It's getting your timing and mechanics down. Yeah. And that's something that comes more so with practice. The more important thing that happens when you are a new player and you are working with somebody who's been in the league for a long time, or even if you have been around for a long time and you are working with somebody who is very good at the game and who really understands the mental aspects of it, is that sort of game intelligence. Because, I mean, I've talked about it before. I think the one season in Halo 3 where I played with Shadow 16 is probably what had the most improvement on me as a player, since I was originally a rookie on Zero Logic. That, like... There's such a mental side to the game that people don't consider, or that they just kind of do instinctually and take for granted. And if you're a new player, you might not always realize all these aspects. It's just things like knowing when you need to go for a mutual versus trying to get a clean kill, or even if there's a situation where getting the kill isn't the right answer, but just holding your ground and keeping them from moving forward. Kind of being able to understand those positions, being able to adjust your tanking styles to adapt to how other people are playing. I think you look at Ace; he's the best example of that. Like, he will constantly be changing how he attacks you, depending on how you respond to him. He adjusts his tanking style for every single player, and that's partly what makes him such a dangerous tank and such a dangerous overall player, is that ability to adapt and change his tactics to fit the current situation. So that's such a huge part of Grifball, and I think it's something that's often really underrated. Like, again, to use the Shadow S16 example, his stats will like shock you just because they're not that good. Relatively speaking, like, you compare it to people like Ace or Gingy, he doesn't go massively positive like those. He doesn't have tons of ball scores like people like Tonga. Like, his stats are fairly underwhelming, but he has won so many championships. Like, he has won more championships by far than any other player in AGLA history, and the reason he has done that is because he is an intelligent player. He knows how to lead teams. He knows how to kind of analyze the current situation of a game and adjust his tactics accordingly. He knows, like, he's a very smart player, and that is why he has been so successful. But yeah, so to go back to the original point there, if you do want to learn more about this, or if you want to help people learn about Grifball, please do go talk to Skittles about that and offer your assistance. I know he is trying to push hard on the forums to find captains for that, so please do help him out, help us get some new blood in here and learn how to play the game.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So moving on, I believe the next thing on the agenda is Pro Tour. I have the chat. I can't open the chat without it ruining the cameras, so...
What chat?
There was an agenda posted in the Skype chat. I don't know if you'll be able to see it though, because it was before you were added to the call.
Before me.
Oh.
Yeah, but I believe the Pro Tour was the next thing on the agenda. Okay. And we've talked about this a little bit here, I've talked about this a little bit here on the Hubcast in the past, but we do have a start date lined up for this, and I would expect to see more information about this come out over the next month or so. One thing I do want to do is eventually host a town hall sort of thing where people can just submit questions, and I will answer those, as well as whoever we have running leadership. That is one of the things that we are waiting on to announce formally what is happening here, just finalizing who is going to be running this and the final structure. But for the most part, everything is fairly nailed down. So I've talked a little bit about the format here, but right now our start date is most likely going to be around the beginning of 2017. As I mentioned in the past, the center of it is that 8-team professional league, which is highly exclusive with 4-man rosters. So since we are going to have all 8 spots open this year, there's going to be 4 qualifiers held to get into there. Each of those qualifiers is going to be a Swiss tournament. The amount of rounds depends on how many teams we have registered for it. And for people who are unfamiliar with the Swiss tournament, it is basically you match the first round. You are paired randomly against other teams. The next round, all the teams that are 1-0 play other 1-0s. All the teams that are 0-1 play other 0-1s. Then in the third round, if you are 2-1, you play another 2-1 team. If you are 2-0, you play another 2-0 team. If you are 1-1, you play another 1-1 team. If you are 0-2, you play another 0-2 team, and so on and so forth for each subsequent round. So basically, the better you do, the better the team that you play, and it kind of at the end of the day, it better subdivides the skill in there, and then the top 2 teams by record in that Swiss is going to get a invite into the professional league. And again, there's going to be 4 of those qualifiers, so each of those you'll have 2 teams getting into the pro league. And the first of those we were aiming to start, I believe I have the 4th and the 5th written down on the schedule, which would be on Wednesday and Thursday night Grifball. So right now that is what we're aiming for start date. Registration, I would imagine, will open about a week before that, possibly a little bit sooner. And again, it's going to be 14 rosters. So if that is something you're interested in doing, that might be something to just kind of keep in the back of your mind as we go into GGL here.
I was
We
wondering
should
why
have forms to sign up with it, right?
What's that?
Is there going to be a forum post to sign up with it? Or?
Yes, there's going to be that's why I was saying there's going to be more information about this over the next month or so. Just kind of a front page post talking more about it, and again the whole town hall thing. And once it gets time for registration, there's going to be a front page post and whatnot, and a big push about that as well. So it's not like this is the one time we're saying it. You're going to hear it a lot. You're going to be hearing it more and more often the closer we get to it.
And just to make sure we're clarified on this, it is still in development. This is still something that we are fine-tuning and that is being very closely looked at from multiple different aspects and angles, and we're really excited for this to actually become a thing. Just on a sidebar question, because I know I'm not the only one thinking this, why did we choose to go with a Swiss format as opposed to like a Brazilian format where you get the teams together and then one of them actually gets robbed and then another one actually fakes getting robbed and talks about it on the news?
The Swiss version's
too
full
soon.
of holes.
Gotcha. Kind of like Lochtie's story. Gotcha. Okay, that works.
Because none of us are swimmers.
There we go. Good example. Good answer.
To kind of go off what you're saying there about things are being in development, most of this is honestly nailed down. The rules have been in heavily construction for some time, and I think it's at the point where there's very few changes that I still want to make over it. There's a couple things here or there that want to get nailed down, and obviously once we finalize the leadership, they're gonna go in and give their final input. But for the most part, I don't see much of this change. I don't see very much of it changing. But so at least with the dates, we don't see the we imagine that that's going to be the case. It's going to start in early January. The sort of test season of it is going to end with RTX in July, which they've already announced the dates for that. That's going to be the 7th through the 9th.
And just so we are clear, This is not going to replace AGLA or GGL. This is a new league in addition to the AGLA and the GGL.
Yep. That's been fairly heavily pointed out here and there. Like the AGLA is going to continue to be the bid league, as far as I know. That's a decision for the admins to make. But I think that there is a niche that wants the bid league. I think it is a very good sort of proving ground for new players, because it lets them play with. It gets them a chance to play with these better skilled veterans and whatnot. So there's definitely a lot of interest, I think, in the AGLA, and there honestly wouldn't be any point in changing that format to something like Classic League if the GGL already does that, and now we have this uber competitive semi-classic setup, although it does have smaller rosters than what we're used to. So I think GGL and AGLA are going to stay close to their current form in terms of setup, but with the AGLA, what it does allow them to do, and I've talked about this in the past, is it lets them be a little more flexible and lets them kind of adapt to it kind of lets them I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but it lets them cater to the players a little bit more. Just because I think you see a lot of people there who aren't interested in the sort of high-end esports level atmosphere that was trying to be fostered in the AGLA. They just want to get in and be able to play games with new people or with new teams. It lets them be a little bit more flexible there in terms of like scheduling and whatnot. So I know those are complaints that we've seen from a lot of players over the past couple of years. So this, I think, is something that will help them a fair bit. We're just basically going to be splitting these two sort of needs that these leagues fill and have them actually be separate concepts rather than trying to shoehorn this esports atmosphere into the AGLA, which has been established for a very long time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's all about the fine tuning.
But yeah, the overall format of it I've talked about in the past in the Hubcast, so I'm not going to go into that again. But yeah, I would expect to see a lot more information about that over the coming month. Again, front page posts, and again, I do want to have that town hall thing to happen so that we can answer questions. That's probably going to happen once once the leadership team is mostly figured out for that. Because right now, I believe the plan is that there's going to be a commissioner, which will be myself, and then we'll have 2 administrators. Although we are not calling them administrators, they're actually going to have defined roles and duties rather than just having like one administration that handles all the decisions. Because I think sometimes with leagues, you just look at it as like, oh, there's the admins, but what admin does what? It's hard to tell because so much of it happens behind the scenes, and you can't tell. You can only tell which ones are posting on the forums, which ones are not. In this case, I think by giving them clearly defined roles, it makes it a little bit easier to tell exactly what they do and their role in making sure that the league runs smoothly. So in this case, it would be like it would be instead of having 2 admins, you would have like a director of operations and a director of community relations or something. And like that community relations admin would be the one who would kind of be the go-to person for the community. If they have concerns or whatnot, they can go straight to them, and they can help bring those up to the rest of the leadership and make sure that they're addressed properly. While the one of the director of operations is more looking at it as a form of actually making the league run smoothly. So things like having schedules built and making sure and looking over disputes and whatnot, kind of leading those sort of things, the day-to-day operations. So that sort of subdivision, I think, is something that's going to be very helpful, just to kind of give a little bit more transparency to the community as to how things are structured with this format, and also to kind of within leadership kind of make sure there's more clearly defined of what everybody does and keep things better organized.
Yep.
Cool.
But yeah, so again, in the coming forward of the next month, I would expect to see a lot more information about that. And again, I won't go too in depth here because it's been talked about. But yeah, the town hall is definitely something that's going to happen hopefully within the next month, and I would expect a front page post as well that really kind of goes into all the details of it, and hopefully we can launch the rules the rules document for that as well, so people can really go in and see exactly how everything is set up.
Cool.
Yep. And again, I don't have my agenda in front of me. Was there anything else that I put on there?
No, that was the last thing you put on your list.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else, DJ, or you want to mention.
That was all I had off the top of my head. DJ, I don't know if you have anything, because you kind of hopped in late.
There has been a lot of discussion about the fact that we have been using just the one broadcast map for our shows, and that is something that we have that I have noticed, and that has been a project that I have been working on the back end with some ideas. And thankfully, Halo 5 Forge has now allowed for some new elements in the forging for these maps to happen, and Knockyard has made a breakthrough and decided to create prefab elements. These prefab elements enable us to actually have the predetermined lockbox and launchers for the game, so that all you have to do is set that into a map, and boom, you've got your broadcast box, you've got the teleporters for the launchers, and everything else around it. So we are currently working on a new... Knockyard is currently building us a new map that will allow us greater, wider range of camera usage.
No chromas.
So no chromas. And it's going to be a lot easier for us to see players, as well as for the casters to see the service tags, because the one thing we still can't do is change the service tag color, which means that, unfortunately, we're still not able to use Sidegrinder in the midst of it. But this new map, we played with it. We went over some options a lot the other night with Knockyard and Taco and I did, and came up with an extraordinarily attractive map that is going to, I think, be very, very amenable to everyone. So that being said, once we get this new map released, the Spartacat, who's in the chat now, has been working on a brand new graphics package that is going to be finalized here shortly and universalized so that we've got it across multiple platforms and multiple software.
Yep.
And this is going to change, I think, the way that a lot of the show is going to look, which is really great. It's also going to make it much more functional. And with the new prefab units, we can now adapt a lot of our varying different maps to being broadcast ready. So we can use maps currently in play. We can use maps that maybe you guys want to create, community creations. So long as you use the prefab components, you can pretty much... I mean, there's...
You can look however you want.
Yeah, you look however you want. You just submit it for approval, and then we can put that in the rotation.
For the few people out there, along with me, who are here in the Halo 3 days and who remember the old home team court program, in a way it's like that, except a whole lot easier. Because Halo 5 Forge makes things a lot easier to work with. It's a little more complex to learn initially, but it is much more powerful. you don't have to, like especially with Halo 3's Forge, you had to kind of jerry rig a lot of things.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It is still my favorite Forge to date, to be honest, Halo 3. Just because it felt like you needed skill to actually make maps, and so much stuff I was immensely proud of when I made it, just because of all the tricks and whatnot you had to employ to make it work.
Yep.
So there's some really incredible stuff that was made with it that you just didn't think was possible.
The only things... Oh, go ahead.
But I mean, things like team home courts would be a possibility with this. With the looking at it from the aspect of the Pro Tour, I've actually seen this actually popped up in chat during the championship, I believe. Not during the championship. It was yesterday during Warzone weekend when we were in matchmaking in Grifball. I believe it was Cannon who brought it up, and it was actually interesting to me because this is actually already in the rules draft for the Pro Tour. What we would like to do is have a map rotation, effectively.
Yes.
So there's sort of a list of approved maps in the pool, and during games for a tournament event, the host of the tournament determines what court is used. For professional league games, the home team would get to choose which court is used. So you actually can have home-away courts if teams want to make their own court, or if they have a certain court that they like playing on.
And just because I know there's a lot of people who are going to jump on this and go, oh my god, I want to start doing this right now. Just be patient.
Wait for the prefabs to be released and whatnot.
The final layouts and prefabs are not completed yet. We are working on that. It's almost done. Knockyard is just kicking butt doing this. But there are going to be things that you're going to need to, as a forger, you're going to need to keep in mind for how these maps are going to be made in order to get them approved to be in rotation. Just because you make a map doesn't mean it will be in rotation. Here's what you need to keep in mind when you start forging and playing with these colors and things. There's going to be no chroma walls, so that we've got a wider access range for our cameras to be able to fly in and around and get better action shots of the game at a closer range. Number 2, color choice. The choice of the floor and the choice of the walls are going to need to have two things that you keep in mind. There needs to be a color that is not going to give an advantage to either the blue team or the red team, and that is also going to make sure that you can still clearly, visibly see the service tags above the names of the players.
What DJ means with core colors not giving an advantage to a team's is that don't make the color of your court blue.
Or red.
Or red.
Or orange.
Or green, because for people who are colorblind, the red-green color blindness, that would not be fun.
Which you may sound like, oh god, you've just removed half the color palette. No, there's an extraordinary color palette that is in this, and there's so many different ways to play with it. And if you'd like to know more about those things, you can always, there's a lot of Forge videos that can teach you about color choosing. And then best thing to do is grab some players, roll them in there, and have one on the red team, one on the blue team, one on the orange team, and then take a look and jump around and look at how easy it is to see them. Lighting is another aspect. You don't want to have super directionalized lighting because then one team is going to be facing the sun. You want to have it as directional above the top so that you've got no shadows. That also makes it a lot easier in the game, and it removes the possible elements of, hey, I couldn't see the ball because it was in the sun.
Yep. For people who remember, I can't even remember what the name of the court was. I believe it was in Halo 4. It might have been Reach even. No, I'm pretty sure it was 4. There was one court that I can't remember the name of, but it was in the matchmaking rotation, and there was one of the effects was applied. I can't remember which one. Like one of the actual kind of like effects that changes the entire look of the map. Mm-hmm. They had that, and there was like the entire court was blue already. It made it near impossible to see blue team. If you remember that court from matchmaking,
the black court.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
Honestly, it was the worst court ever. I hated that court.
It was not the worst court ever. That award goes to
that
award goes to Chichen Itza.
Yeah, Chichen Itza, V Court, and Bloodsport. Well, but yeah, those elements really can destroy the viability of the game. So keep those things in mind, and if you are starting to play with it, start playing with it. But the prefab elements are going to make this so much easier for so many of you to have a creative outlet for the things that you want to see on a court, what you think is going to make a great court. If you really want to get into some designs on the side that are not going to actually affect gameplay, go for it. Just keep in mind that we have to have free cam availability so that we've got that option of being able to fly through the game and see what's happening. So all of that will be released, and we'll actually, I think, have a whole show with Knockyard about that once that's all ready and set to go. But in the meantime, I believe that new court should hopefully be available to us this week, and we will possibly be seeing the first show with it around the AMI Champs.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Yep.
I believe that is pretty much it as far as news goes here. I mean, we actually started on time for once, so we've been hitting right at, we're almost at the 50-minute mark at this point.
Yep.
It's nice. We had stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
It's a refreshing change.
I finished my coffee, which means I'm now officially sort of awake.
Yep, just in time for things to end. Perfect timing.
Yep. So, all right, I think that's it then.
Yep, that's going. That's gonna be it for this episode of the Hubcast. Again, this was episode 313. I am Sonic Nachos. Joining me was Oogie and DJ, who again hopped in partway through the call there. So if you missed him when he hopped in, that is who has been talking.
Yes. And just don't forget, for more information about what we do, how we do it, and how you can get involved, go to GrifballHub.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram at GrifballHub. One F if you spell it with
One
two,
more thing, because this just popped up in chat. Spartacad in chat saying that he's working on a GrifballHub theme. NFL has theme music. Why can't Grifball? We do. Have you ever heard the Sunday Night Grifball theme? I wish I had. If I had it, I would actually play it on stream right now. But yeah, it has existed.
We'll say that for another day.
I don't know if Rooster Teeth might own it.
Yeah,
it was their broadcast at the time. But I think that they gave us the license to use it at some point. I'm not 100% sure how that worked.
We'll have to test that out on a stream or find out.
Our new theme music can be work with Corey on Tumor. We can have it be what was it? Bow down to my host. That can be the official theme. Except host doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, Spartacat, I'll find it and DM it to you. Again, I don't know how the licensing on it works. That's a Goose Cow question, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure at some point, because I used it it was for their AGLA broadcast. I'm pretty sure at some point that we were able to use it for when we brought back Sunday Night Grifball. I think they allowed us to use that. I'm not 100% sure though.
Yeah, we'll have to see and make sure that it doesn't get us.
It's there somewhere. We'll find it.
Awesome. All right, so I guess that brings us to the end.
Yes, it is. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Again, be sure to check us out on Wednesday and Thursday Night Grifball. Again, we'll have the AMI semifinals on Wednesday and the championship on Thursday. Those will both start at 9 p.m. Eastern. So do tune in for those, and we will see you all then.
Yay! Bye!
Thank you for listening to the Grifball Hubcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at GrifballHub for all the latest in Grifball news and entertainment.